Now, of course, the difficulty with this Fantasie Impromptu is how do we put it hands together? We've got a polyrhythm 4 against 3, which is possible, of course, possible to practice slowly. You'd have to know exactly how the notes synchronized. Ta, 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 ta is the rhythm that comes out. Where did you work today? If you want to use a little catchphrase that would help you feel it. The problem with that is there's only so much mileage in that because when we get faster we can't possibly hear that happen. So it's not a bad way to begin, but it's not my preferred way to begin. I'll show you how I would suggest beginning once you've learned separate hands. This idea came to me a few years ago when I was teaching the D major prelude of Bach. We know that Chopin began his days with practice, and he practiced Bach, preludes and fugues. And I think he practiced a lot of Mozart as well, but he was particularly keen on the Bach preludes and fugues. So I can imagine him coming up with his own version of that. Perhaps he was thinking, well, that sounds interesting. It's a bit too baroque, really, for me. How can I bring that up to date? I know. How about I put a polyrhythm in there and make it sort of romantic? This is just my little kind of fantasy story. But it's very helpful when we practice hands together slowly, because what we can do is we can make the skeleton version in the left hand and just play those notes that are on the first beat. And in those places where the hands synchronize as it happens. So every third left hand note if you want. So that I don't actually want to stop. There's something very satisfying about that. There's none of the problems that come up with the polyrhythm, and it's a very good way to really listen to the clarity of the right hand. You'll notice there I wasn't using any pedal at all. So I would recommend that as a very good way of practicing, not only at the very beginning when you're wanting to put the hands together, but also later on when you want to come back to something a bit cleaner. But I know that's not what you really want to hear. You want to hear, how do I make a polyrhythm fit 4 against 3? So what I really need in this instance is a metronome, and I'm not a great fan of the metronome, but on this particular occasion I recommend you get a metronome out and you set it to pulse at, let's find a pulse. Now what I'm going to do, I'll come back to that in a second, I'm going to play any old broken chord. Let's take it to C major. How many notes there? 6. See, I'm dividing my beat into 6, and then I'm dividing it into 8. You'd have a metronome that was pulsing like this. So you alternate. Until such time as you felt brave enough to try it together. And I'm sure you've all learned at some point to ride a bicycle. You probably, I can remember being most frustrated that I kept falling off when I was shown how to ride. I had stabilizers on the back of my bicycle. So I graduated from a tricycle, 3 wheels, which I could do easily. And then it was time for me to learn a proper 2-wheel bicycle. So it had stabilizers on the back. And I could ride it like that after a bit, but then when my father took the stabilizers off and I set out, over I went. So the first time you do this, you probably find that you go a bit wonky, you fall off. But I do remember the time when I didn't fall off my bicycle and never fell off thereafter, because all of these times that I was supposedly going wrong, I was actually learning how to do it right. This is how it works. The brain has several errors. What is it? It's not an error, is it? It's how we learn. So we make the mistakes, and then after a while we finesse that until we can do that. Now I can play this to you and talk to you because it's in my body. It's not in my, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. It's automated, and that's what we want to get to. We want to get to a stage where this is really simple. So if you're about to learn this piece, you can be working on your right hand, you can be working on your left hand, you can be working on your skeleton version, and you can be practicing that very, very, very simple exercise. Yes, that's the best I've done today. So that's how I would suggest first finding that 4/3 polyrhythm. I'm going to come back in a second and show you how you can apply this now to the Fantasie Impromptu.